Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 218. With England's Six Nations standings in the hands of Wales and Ireland, we look ahead to our final game of the tournament against Scotland and what the boys need to do to round off a successful championship. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hi guys, welcome to our final midweek episode of the Six Nations 2019. Obviously, massive weekend coming up. Lots of potential outcomes which we'll get onto, and to discuss all of it, and of course to discuss the Scotland game that's coming on Saturday, I'm joined as always by Dan. Hi mate.
Hello buddy, feeling just a bit happier this week because we've now got our last match was a victory rather than that 2-week wait after the Wales bullshit. That was
depressing. And it's great to hear you sounding so crisp and clear, and I'm sure our listeners will join me in being grateful for this. You've decided to turn on the old microphone this time.
Well, we spent money on it. I thought I might as well try and use it.
I mean, why not use it for the second time ever? Brilliant. Yeah, no, you're right. It feels so much nicer coming off a win, and a good win. We kind of got used to seeing that with the first couple of games, the way that they performed. We had high expectations in Cardiff, and we were sorely let down on that front. So great to get back to not just winning ways, but really kind of positive winning ways with a strong performance, admittedly against Italy, but something we'll talk about in a bit. I think there are certain things that we can take from that game. There's obviously been a few things in the media, a few announcements that we can discuss. But in terms of the actual Italian game and kind of looking back on it, is there anything that you feel is warrants a mention at this stage?
So the key thing to me, before we move on, is, and I've heard a few people say this, so I am piggybacking a bit on people who know a lot more about rugby than me and their reviews. I'm inclined to agree. I don't think Tio Tuilagi in the centres is our solution, but then I think we had a solution in Tuilagi Slade. So I don't think it's a nightmare, and I don't think Eddie Jones was ever looking at it as a solution, just seeing what potential options were.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think lots of people saying it was Italy, so it doesn't. I think that the general response was it's all well and good saying that you put out these centres and they bossed the game, but it was Italy. But I think you have to kind of look at Italy in this Six Nations, and although they have been subpar for some time now, the bottom line is no one else managed to put a score like that on them.
Mate, I think that's the key point. Like, everyone mugs off Italy, and Italy aren't a great team at the moment. Let's not pretend we beat a great international team, but let's also realise we did to Italy that no one else has managed to do. Fair enough, there is a difference between them playing home and away, but we absolutely dominated them. None of the others managed that. I mean, Wales didn't manage a bonus point against them. Wales got the bonus. Wales didn't manage the bonus point. Yeah, Ireland got the bonus point in the end, but it wasn't vintage Ireland, although it looks like Ireland might be getting good at the right time for us.
Yeah, indeed. And for them. I mean, they need it. They came into this Six Nations as number 2 in the world and are potential favourites for the World Cup. And England kind of buggered that up for them, really, didn't they? It changed everything. And they seem to have been sort of trying to claw their way back from that opening weekend defeat. They hadn't, and I think until this weekend, they hadn't really put in a really solid performance. They'd won their games, but it didn't feel like vintage Ireland as you described it. Whereas, this weekend, by no means perfect, but definitely a far more kind of solid, consistent performance from them, and definitely something I think bodes well for England looking ahead to Wales, Ireland in Cardiff next weekend, because of course we will get into discussing the potential outcomes of the weekend. But the most important thing for us is that Ireland need to win.
Ireland do need to win for us, but as we've said, that's out of our hands. We need to go out and we need to perform against Scotland, and we need to win, and we should win. As much as anything, we're at Twickenham. Scotland have a lot of injuries, and I think we're a better team. With their full team, Scotland are a threat, as we saw last year, and Scotland beat us last year, and completely deservedly so. This year, so to me, if we beat Scotland and we beat them well, we've had a good Six Nations. If we lose to Scotland, we've had a poor Six Nations.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I guess you're right. On paper, we can't lose to Scotland. They're hugely under strength right now. Major injury concerns, confounded by confounded. Is that even the word? Compounded? I'm not sure. By the fact that they're missing their back three. Which England will be relishing the opportunity. I mean, it's always a bit of a dangerous one when you kind of got unknowns. They've got a fresh cap, I think, at the back in the form of Kyle Steyn.
I don't know much or anything about this guy. So
well, I don't either, and that's what I'm saying. That's why it's always a bit dangerous, because you get these people that come in and you know nothing about them, so you kind of just assume, well, that's a good thing for England. But sometimes it's players like that who have been given this opportunity, perhaps unexpectedly, and it can go one way or the other. Hopefully, it goes the way we want it to go. But yeah, is it Ruud Jackson? I don't know how you pronounce his name.
Rudyard, I believe it is.
Say it again.
Rudyard, something like that. Who cares?
Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson.
He's a known entity to an extent.
Yeah. So he's obviously been called up because, of course, Seymour and Kinghorn both got injured on Saturday, and as we know, Stuart Hogg is out. So, three pretty big threats from the Scottish side unavailable to play England. Playing away from home, Scotland haven't won at Twickenham since 1983. So lots of factors stack against them on that respect. It does add, I think, a little bit of extra pressure to England, because the more of an underdog they become, the less they have to lose, and the more England have to lose. But I just feel like England, Wales aside, the Cardiff game aside, England have just been so. The work rate's been so high. They've just been so clinical. And I just don't think these sorts of things are going to factor in. And I don't think the halfbacks, which, as we know, is one of the main excuses I have for the Wales performance, I just don't see them having another poor game. I feel like they've had that one, and it's been a bit of a wake up call. And I suspect that we'll see them firing again come Saturday. So
England. Sorry, mate. Yeah, England look like a team now very capable of winning a World Cup.
100%. I mean, if I know we're biased, and we make no.
Shut the front door, mate. What are you on about?
We don't. I can't even think of the word. We don't have an issue with that. That's what we're all about. But if you're Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, do you want to play England in the World Cup, in a knockout stage of a World Cup?
No, of course you don't. Of course you don't. In the same way we don't want to play. In the same way we don't want to play the All Blacks or probably South Africa, Australia. Bring them on. They're shit. But
let's hope they don't do to us what they did in 2015.
Yeah. Fuck me, that was annoying. So to me, and you and I have had a chat about this week. You don't want to play England. You don't want to play Ireland. You don't want to play Wales, but I think they're third to England and Ireland with regards to threat levels, which I know everyone will say, but they've beaten England and think, shut up. Like they did beat us and they deserve a win. And if they win the Grand Slam, maybe I'll review my stance on it. Probably not, but maybe I will.
No, you'll go with my theory. England lost that game. I know people will say, "Oh, arrogant English," and that's what tends to happen on Twitter. If a Welshman says that Wales are going to win, it's passion and pride. If an Englishman says that England are going to win, it's arrogance. I'll take it. I don't care. Bottom line, Wales have not performed in this Six Nations, despite they're on for a Grand Slam. It's kind of crazy. They've scored the same number of tries in this competition as Italy.
Yeah, and they've let in the least as well. Their defence,
Yeah.
any way you look at it, their defence has been awesome.
They've let in the least
But you're
tries
right.
for sure, but you can't win a World Cup. You can't even threaten to win a World Cup if you can't score points. It's all well and good, reducing the points scored against you, but it's a combination. You need both sides of the coin, and they don't seem to have it. I go back to what I've said over the last few weeks. I'm not saying it from a point of arrogance. I'm saying it because it's what I'm seeing on the screen. I'm almost willing myself to find a reason to say, actually, hang on, I've missed a few things given some of the feedback that we've had, but I can't find it. I look at Wales. I've watched the matches, and the performances of the teams they're playing against have been very poor. And I know that if you get a run of those during a World Cup, you might win a World Cup. Chances are that's not going to happen. I genuinely believe that if England played Wales again, England would comfortably win. And I think Ireland are gonna shine a bit of a light on the issues that they've been having, which I think have been somewhat hidden in the performances of the oppositions that they've faced during this competition. But I don't know, we'll see. I'll no doubt get proved wrong again, and they'll put in some ridiculously great performance, and everyone will then be saying how amazing Wales are, and I'll be trying to think of some other excuse.
Yeah, well, mate, don't get me wrong. We got time to make up excuses should that happen. But
we'll just deny we ever said this, and anyone who quotes it or listens back, and we'll just say, "Don't know what you're talking about, mate." Clearly, it's been doctored.
Yeah, exactly. We'll blame the Welsh cyber
somehow.
team.
Exactly.
Right. Let's. Sorry. Were there reviews?
I was gonna. Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna do a couple of reviews before we move on. Put Italy behind us. Not that I particularly want to put them behind us. It was a great result for England. But yes, we've heard from. This was an interesting one. So it's Juju Smonas.
Okay.
Juju Smonas. I'm not sure. 5 stars, nonetheless. 3 thumbs up as well. He says, very interesting to listen. I am French, supporting a French team, but I love the Six Nations and listening to different points of view and analysis. The England team is playing great, so I was interested to listen to a pod focused on it. No regrets. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, guys. Keep the chat going.
Excellent. Is that necessarily a male? Could that be
I have no idea. No idea. Well, I suspect it may not even be a name. People like to make up handles, so it could be anything.
Either way, thank you very much for the review, and that's nice when you get somebody from, because whether we'd be humble enough to do that to a pod from a different nation. So the fact, Juju, that you've done that shows that you're a better person than us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not sure that's hard to be. We're clearly not good people there. But yeah, no, really appreciate that. And as Dan says, to have someone who's not a diehard England fan, kind of, enjoying what we're doing and clearly getting what we're all about. We really appreciate the feedback. So thank you so much for that. Also, we have had a message on Twitter. It was a question from Sam Stocks, who's become a recent follower. He says, at England Rugby Pod, the 12-13 combination has lots of options at the moment. But is it harsh that Joe Marchant hasn't got a chance? He is the Premiership's top try scorer and captained the under-20s for 2 years. P.S. I may be a bit biased as I sat next to him in my sports class at college for 2 years.
So is it harsh? Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. So, I mean, you as this... sorry, who was it? What was the name of...
This is from Sam Stocks.
Sam. So, yes, it is harsh. I suspect you're clearly a Quins fan, like Andy is. Joe Marchant's a great player. My only question to that is, who would you have had him instead of? Possibly in the earlier days, he could have got a nod ahead of Lazowski, possibly even a Slade in the early days.
I think pre the Six Nations, there was an argument for giving him a shot ahead of Slade, but Henry Slade was so good in that opening game that he completely turned the tables. I agree with what you're saying, Dan. I think it's a yes and a no answer. On form, and on his form in the Premiership, you have to say he's probably earned the right to be given an opportunity. But looking at the performances in this Six Nations of the guys wearing the England shirt, how do you say to any of them, actually, do you know what, we've got someone else we want to try out instead of you?
I wouldn't have him in my like the 31-man squad that's currently there until Thursday when they cut it. I wouldn't have him in that squad now.
Well, that's what I mean. He's sort of your. You wouldn't want to swap him for a Tio/Manu because they're very different types of player. So you're looking at him as an alternative to Henry Slade. And bottom line is that's it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Joe Marchant's a great player, and what I'd like to see Joe Marchant play is that Barbars match.
Yeah, and he may very well be the sort of player that does get the call up for something like that. I mean, it's not going to be quite the same for him. It's not obviously an official cap, but sometimes you just got to take the opportunities that present themselves. And I think he needs to be. I don't know how old Joe is, but he's young, obviously, and he's going to be looking at. He's going to play a part in the England setup as long as he stays injury free. It's not going to be 2019. He's going to be looking at the 2023 World Cup.
Yeah, I think so. I just had a look. He's 22, so he's still young. That's a good question, actually. That's a really good question, because someone like a Joe Marchant, who's not really been on the radar, but probably should have been more. So I think there's time for him. I think there's a future for him. But right now, for me, he's not in the top 35, 31, whatever it is.
Well, I think the other key point here is we're so close to a World Cup now. You need continuity, and sometimes you're selecting purely based on individual performances, and sometimes you're selecting based on how they perform as part of the setup. And you can't keep changing that kind of willy-nilly right up until the last minute. At some point you have to say, this is my core group and I'm sticking with it. And obviously they need to be there or thereabouts at the very, very top. Of course, if there was a massive difference between Henry Slade and Joe Marchant, for example, then we'd be saying it doesn't matter how close you are to a World Cup, you've got to have the better player. But I think when things are so close as they are, I think you have to just say, that's really unfortunate, but maybe you just didn't come quite good enough at the right time, and other people got their opportunity, and on this occasion we're so close to the World Cup now, unfortunately you're going to miss out. But keep doing what you're doing, because the other thing to bear in mind is we don't know what the future holds in terms of injuries and things. Henry Slade suddenly goes down with an injury and he's unavailable for the World Cup. Joe Marchant might be the first name on the replacement list for something. If you're looking for like for like.
I think he's still a way off, because especially if you've got Slade at 13, I think you've still got a JJ.
True.
You've still got even the likes of a Lazowski. I never know which one it is. I don't care that much, but no. I love him as a player, but pronunciation is not my key.
It's not your strong point, is it?
Well, English as a whole, it's a struggle.
Yeah. Except when it comes to supporting them in rugby.
It's a great question, though. It's a good question, actually, because someone like a Joe Marchant, who's like sort of almost on the sidelines. So other people you've got to look at, like someone like a Sam Simmons comes back. Sam Simmons is, further ahead because of what he's done. But is he going to be considered?
Underhill?
Underhill will definitely be considered, because he's a 7. And at the moment we've got Tom Curry at 7. But our 2 out-and-out 7s are Curry and Underhill.
Yeah. It's a good question. Who is Tom Curry's replacement?
Well, it would be obviously you'd say some like an Underhill if he's fit. If Underhill's not fit,
but right now, you're playing a 6 at 7, right? Really?
Yeah, I think you probably are. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. That's interesting, actually. Yeah,
we do. I think only have Curry and Underhill, who are out and out 7s. Who are in the frame, if you like.
To me, I know who mine is. Mine would be a Matt Kovacic.
Yeah. A Haskell.
Haskell. I'd fucking love Haskell to be back in.
Just take him on tour for the band.
just let him go.
Take
Leave
the Archbishop
alone.
on tour. Give him, he'll happily go as the water boy, I think.
I'm sure he will. Not put in. He hasn't earned it yet because he's been injured a long time and things. Not that he hasn't. I just mean right now, I understand why he's not involved. If he plays well, he potentially could be a ENGvSCO, a Don Armand maybe.
Don.
But that name hasn't been mentioned in ages, has it? That shows how well England are playing.
Yeah. And I think I quite like the fact that Eddie Jones has come in for so much kind of abuse and people saying he doesn't know what he's doing. And, it was only 6 months ago there were people calling for his head, saying his time with England was up and we should get rid of him before it's too late and all this sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden England started playing well again and everyone's like, yeah, Eddie Jones, yes, he's a bit difficult, but he's a genius. He knows what he's doing. And I hasten to add, have always had his back.
We stood strong. We stood strong like a fine oak tree.
Exactly. But yeah, I like the fact that pretty much whenever he's made a call that people have questioned, he's been able to back it up with results.
Yes and no. There was a point last year where, don't get me wrong, I never ever wanted Eddie's head anywhere near the line, but there were times last year where I was sceptical why some players weren't involved and others were. Even now, I must admit, like looking at this squad coming in, Marcus Smith coming back into the squad, is he realistically going to play? Probably not.
No.
To me, I kind of understand because Eddie said that and they mentioned a bit about should one of the others be injured and you needed a fly half, you'd need to have a real selection chat. But to me, Cipriani should have been in that squad ahead of Marcus Smith still.
There's clearly a personality issue there, isn't there?
Well, I don't know. Is it personality or is it Eddie's just not seeing what he wants to see from his 10? Because is there a personality? That would be saying there's a personality issue with a Don Armand. There's a personality issue with an Alex Good. So it's hard to know if it's a personality or if Eddie just doesn't quite see in them what perhaps the rest of us do. And you can't question Eddie at the moment because England are playing good rugby. Yeah. England are playing, great rugby. And fine, there was 20 crazy minutes or 30 crazy minutes against Wales where it didn't work out well. But that's not because of poor selection. That was because of, in fairness, a fairly poor game plan and not a great day. But that was still...
And as we pointed out in the last episode, Eddie actually, I mean, again, and I respect him a lot for this. He said in the media, he said, look, bottom line is we didn't utilise our replacements properly, and that's on me. Now, it's obviously it's not all his fault because, as we've discussed, there was some individual issues that I think ultimately cost us the game. But I think they're issues that are easily remedied. Something went wrong on the day, and I know that it's easy to say that, and it's a World Cup, and when you hit knockout, that ends your hopes. And there's a real chance that a game like that, key players not performing, could cost the game. That's where Eddie needs to be kind of strong-willed enough to say it's not happening. Pull off the wrong players and put someone in their place. And the big question is George Ford someone that Eddie trusts to take that mantle and run the game the way he expects Owen Farrell to?
And I believe he is, but it's also like something I'll say for Eddie. Like I respect him for doing that, but as we mentioned before, it kind of snuck up on us. Like it's not as if Wales suddenly took a 10-point lead with 15 minutes to go. They'd like snuck ahead, and we were like, okay, we should be able to get this back. And I was thinking that in my head, and then they got that try in the last few minutes, where it took it completely out of reach, and it's hard to preempt that because if you're still thinking, I know this team because for the previous 2 weeks or whatever it was against Ireland and France, they have pulled out those results. You're thinking, no, I trust these guys to be able to do that. So it does make it harder on Eddie.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing, Dan.
It certainly is, sir. It certainly is.
Well, interesting. Jamie George was interviewed after the game, and talking about the Wales game, and he said, and I genuinely believed every word that he spoke when he said, we as a team genuinely never felt like we were going to lose the game. even when the tables turned. I'm sure once that second try went in, they did. But, up until that point, they all had the belief that they would find a way to turn the tables. And yeah, there was a great, as it turns out, a great 50-50 ball, and Dan Biggar put in a perfect kick, and they scored that try. And these things happen in rugby, and it broke English hearts. But yeah, I see what you're saying. There's the equal argument is to say that he did trust his side, but it was the one that was on the pitch. And hindsight being what it is, it's easy, I guess, to look back and go, "You got that wrong." And maybe that's what he was responding to, is saying, "No, actually, it's my fault because I decided not to make that change. I decided to back the guys to turn it around, and it didn't happen. And maybe if I'd made the change, something could have happened." But it's in the past. There's nothing we can do about that particular result now. And the key thing moving forwards is that England continue to put in these performances. Because obviously, one game left in this Six Nations, and then what have we got left leading up to the World Cup?
So after the World Cup, we mentioned this last time about we were trying to figure out the games. So we actually have 4 more fixtures after this game. So 5 altogether, including Scotland. So 11th of August, we've got England versus Wales. 17th of August, Wales, England. So down in Cardiff. Then 24th of August, we're playing Ireland at Twickenham. And 6th of September, we've got Italy at Twickenham. So we've got 4 World Cup warm-up games, which actually 4 games, you can learn a lot. But you do want to go into those games 95% knowing your World Cup starting 15 and your World Cup squad. Probably 98% with maybe a couple of areas of debate as into will it be Cognizant or Null starting like in our tough match? Will it be whoever? Will it be Rob Shaw or Shields who makes the squad, or whatever that may be?
Well, the next tough match we have in front of us is this Saturday against Scotland. So let's ask that question now. Noel is back. Cognizant has just got man of the match. May is in.
Yeah, May's in. May's been too good not to be in. I start Cognizant.
Noel on the bench?
Yeah.
I agree. I think Jack Noel has that ability to come in and do things. I mean, yeah, I agree with you, but I think at the same time, I wouldn't be horrified to hear that it was going to go the other way. I think the 3 of them have earned the right to be the 3 in the 23. But yeah, as I'm saying it out loud, I'm just thinking the thought of Joe Cokanasiga coming on for 20, 25 minutes is fairly brutal. But actually, he was so good in the first 5 minutes against Italy. I think he needs the opportunity to be able to do that kind of damage again.
So Jack Noel's too good a player to ever be upset about him starting a game. He's far too good a player. But I'd like to see Cokanasiga start and Noel come on and have that replacement. But if it is the other way around, fine. Yeah, like I'm with you, no issue. But, also what you've got to bear in mind as a finisher, you need to give them time. Like 5, even 10 minutes isn't enough time.
No, agreed. 20 minutes minimum. 20 minutes minimum.
I agree. But either way, I'm not annoyed about it. So the one that I'm interested about, and because Eddie Jones half alluded to this, was about the centres. So I mentioned on Saturday, and a few people have mentioned this. I'm pretty sure I'm the first person to have mentioned this.
Of course. I doubt anyone's ever even said it before. What is it?
Mate, I completely agree. But saying that Tuilagi in the wider channels makes those breaks, makes those impacts, makes those ends more so than in the 12 channel. But that's not taken into account the people he draws in when he's at the 12 channel, which maybe makes it out wide. But is there a possibility that Eddie's going to go Ford, Farrell, and Tuilagi at 13?
I mean, look, there's always a possibility. I personally think it would be a mistake. I think you either stick with Tio Tuilagi at 12-13, which I don't think is the right call, given that it produced a result on Saturday, or you go back to where we produced a result against Ireland, and you have Farrell 10, Tuilagi 12, Slade 13, and I think the key thing about Tuilagi in the outside channel is there's no reason why during the game for particular plays or at certain with certain scenarios in front of them they can't Slade and Tuilagi can't switch.
So you listen to the Flats and Shanks ITV podcast as well?
I did not. Is that I genuinely didn't? Is that what they said?
No, that's what Shanklin said. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly that. I'm sorry. I thought
no, 100%. And no one will believe me now. But no, I haven't listened to it.
I don't. So
Yeah. Why would anyone else?
Why would anyone else? Yeah. No, I know you're being upfront about that, and I know, but you're exactly right. Like, if you're willing to put Cognasiga in the scrum and Billy out in the backs, why would you not be willing to swap them for the odd move?
Yeah.
But the only issue with that is it becomes a bit more of a beacon, sort of saying, "Oh, look, Manny's out wide now. What are they going to do?" Like Manny's in that 13 channel.
Yeah, but I guess though, the way that attacking lines go now with basically two lines running up together, and it either goes the flat pass or it goes the deep pass, and I feel like there's ways that they can do it without simply going right. Let's line up the other way round.
I think they can do it second, third phase. If you do it first phase, I think it becomes quite obvious.
But they've got the skills to do that.
For sure.
So I think if that's something that's been identified as a potential attacking threat, then I think England can look to kind of manipulate the situation to have Tuilagi on the outside at certain in certain phases. And Slade is a quality ball player who has the capabilities of doing that, and essentially you end up with two fly halves and a centre temporarily. I don't see why they can't do that. I would personally, that would be my choice, would be to stick with Farrell, Tuilagi, Slade at 10, 12, 13. I think that's the best we've seen from England so far, and I don't think that this game, given I guess the other question is, we don't yet know the result of Wales Ireland, and it's going to be a big factor, because whilst I'm not suggesting that at any point we go into the Scotland game not caring about whether we win, we 100% want to win that game. But if Wales win on Saturday, that Scotland game is obviously less important. It's still important, but it's less important because we can't win the Six Nations. And frankly, in my opinion, coming second or coming third doesn't matter. You either win or you don't win.
Agreed.
So if Wales were to win on Saturday, and they obviously play before England, then we go into the Scotland game knowing that the Six Nations title is no longer an option. So maybe you are a little bit more open to trying some things out, and maybe at that point you say, "I don't." You don't
change your team then.
Oh no. Well, I don't think you can at that point. But maybe you change. Maybe you do say, right, let's actually start Tuilagi at 13. Maybe you say, let's. I don't know. I'm just suggesting that perhaps there are opportunities to mix things up. Eddie's always said he wants to have a team where the players are capable of playing more than one position. He wants them to be flexible. Some of which I think is probably a little bit tongue in cheek, just to get the media tongues wagging, like with the Noel playing 7 thing.
Yeah, sorry. So I was going to say one scenario when you mentioned that's interesting to me. If Wales Ireland draw, I believe it's 2 points. So Wales would go to 18 points. Then if England beats Scotland, England in theory win the Six Nations. Can Wales lose the Six Nations without losing a match?
Yeah, I think
because it's not a Grand Slam, is it?
It's not a Grand Slam, so they would, as you say, go from 16 to 18. I guess, though, it depends whether or not 4 tries were scored, because that would take them to 19, because they'd get a bonus point for 4 tries.
Yeah, but then if we won against Scotland without a bonus point, I think points difference is so much stronger.
I think the bottom line is, if England win and Wales don't win, England win the Six Nations.
Booyah!
I think. Although actually, because England a win with no bonus points would take them to 19, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And Wales, in theory, a draw with a bonus point would take them to 19, but England have the points difference. And obviously you're not getting the Grand Slam for a draw. So yeah, Wales basically have to win to prevent England from winning the Six Nations.
Yeah, I believe
line.
so.
And England have to win in order to win the Six Nations.
Well, yeah, England have to win either way. Yeah. So and that's the key. England have to win. So, because regardless of the Wales Island result, if England don't win, we don't win the Six Nations. So we have to win, which I believe we will, and I believe we'll win fairly well.
Yeah.
So the Ireland Wales match is good. That's going to be a good game, mate. That's going to be fun to watch. So we mentioned, didn't we? We're going to do our sort of pre-recording first, but then we'll do a little 5 minutes after the Wales Island game, because that does make a difference.
Absolutely, yeah. We're gonna have to report on that and before half time. So yeah, we'll try and slot in a little sort of segment after our intro, before the kickoff, and all of which will appear to you guys as being after the game. But yeah, that's how we'll do it, so that we continue to keep that kind of live response going. But yeah, it is a massive game. But bottom line is, it's out of our hands. We can only focus on the assumption that we'll still be in it come the final game of the weekend, and it'll be a game we'll have to win in order to win the Six Nations. And obviously, if Wales can prevent that from being an option, then we go into that game knowing that we can't win the Six Nations, but we can still put in a performance and send a message to the world. Less than 6 months out from a World Cup.
So very quickly, your starting 15
for Scotland.
For England, you think? Oh,
yeah, obviously for England, Scotland. but against Scotland. Well, hang on. Before we do that though, there's one other thing I wanted to look at, and we don't talk about the front row very much. And this one is a Flats in response to something I saw from Flats, but this was something I read. He wrote an article for the Evening Standard, which I was looking at last night, and he was talking about Genge and Sinclair against Italy, and I found it quite interesting. He was saying, obviously, from a front row perspective, he really enjoyed seeing these two guys, both notorious for being quite kind of feisty, in-your-face players. Lots of people, particularly where Carl Sinclair's concerned, talking about how, is he a liability? And I think Genge is seen in quite a similar way.
Yeah.
Both of them, he was saying, just, consummate professionals against Italy. They got on with what they had to do, put in 60, 70-minute performances. But he was saying that, one of the things about players like that is that edge that they have is something you don't want to lose. So, yeah, you don't want them to become liabilities, but you also don't want them to lose that edge, that kind of ability to get in the heads of their opposite numbers when they're competing at scrums and things. And he pointed out something that most of us, and I certainly didn't see it, most of us wouldn't have spotted, which is there was one particular scrum. I think the scrum had sort of collapsed, no one's fault, it was being reset. And Genge leant over to his opposite man and he just lifted up his shirt to reveal his gut and then dropped it back down. And nothing more was kind of said of it. And what Flats was saying is that when he was playing, something that in his head, because they're all big boys at the front, is that you really don't want your gut on live TV. So he was saying it was just this little sort of mind game. Genge leaning over and just going, there you go. I've just shown everyone your gut, mate.
Do you even remember that? That's brilliant. Like I didn't
see it. I read about it. It was something that he had spotted, and he was saying, Flats was saying, as a front row forward, he saw it and immediately knew exactly what that was. It was a little mind game from Genge on his opposite man that most of us wouldn't even have noticed.
Jesus Christ, Flatman, he gives fucking great reviews, doesn't he? I really enjoy. I must admit, there are times where I find it a bit. I don't know. Sometimes there are times where I can find some behaviours a bit weird, but I love his review. I think he's one of the best pundits out there.
It just comes across as a kind of not working for anybody. He's just telling you what he thinks, which I guess is very much like what we're trying to do. Only he has professional experience to back his theories up, and we just
he knows a lot more than us,
and we just make shit up. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. I like that's what I like about him too. He just it just feels very, very genuine. Whereas I think some of the pundits, it feels a little bit like they're towing the party line, and they're saying what the producers want them to say to a degree. But yeah, looking at Genge and Sinclair, I mean, both future superstars for England. Carl Sinclair clearly at this World Cup.
Superstar.
Ellis Genge, I think, under different circumstances, we'd possibly be saying going in the right direction. We're going to, he'll be a superstar come World Cup time. But of course, he's up against Mako Vunipola, which is unfortunate for Ellis Genge. It's great for England because Mako is world class already. Is Ellis Genge going to be our number 2?
Yes.
I think Ben Moon misses out.
I think, unfortunately, so. Mako is. So I said the other week that I think Genge Sinclair in a few years' time, Genge Sinclair and Jamie George will be our front row and the best in the world. I completely ignored the Mako factor there. I still think Genge
because
Sinclair.
Mako's only about 12, even though he looks about 40.
Yeah, exactly. Mako's probably best in the world at his position, but Genge is number 2 for me. Yeah.
It's not bad. It's not a bad place to be, is it?
Not at all. Not behind Mako, who's an absolute genius.
So, lots more, I think, probably to come from him, and yeah, the future is bright. Dan, the future is bright. Last few things. Toje's obviously remains injured, so he obviously got his knee injury against Ireland, and then managed to injure it again in training. So he's out for the rest of the Six Nations. Obviously, it is a loss. And with Courtney Laws missing as well, there are only 2 of the awesome foursome left. But they are fit. They will no doubt be our starting 4 and 5. Does Eddie stick with what he did against Italy and not have a second row, a specific second row replacement, but in fact have that second back row option in someone like a Nathan Hughes, probably Nathan Hughes, who we can bring on in the second row if needed?
Good question. I think so.
Because obviously Charlie Ewels is in the 30 plus.
So it's Elliot Stoke or however it's pronounced. Yeah, I think so because you've got. So for me, you've got Curry Wilson starting on the flanks with Billy at 8, obviously.
Yep.
And then I think so because I think Shields or Nathan Hughes can fit in the row if needs be. So I think you stick to that. Against this match, and at some point I want to see like Charlie Ewels have a game, but I don't think this weekend's the time. So I think you stick with how he did against Italy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's actually the question you asked me before. I mentioned the front row there was about the starting 15. We've just named our forwards because of course that's Genge, Sinclair, and
Jamie George
up front. Launchbury and Cruz in the middle, and then Wilson, Curry, and Vunipola at the back. And then I think the back line.
Hang on. Sorry, Launchbury, Cruz, and Vunipola at the back.
What? No, Launchbury, Cruz in the middle.
Yeah.
Wilson, Curry, Vunipola at the back.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, so that's our forwards. That's the starting forwards, and then I think you have to go Ben Youngs, Farrell, Manu, Slade. I agree with you. Cokanasiga, May obviously is the other side, and Daly at the back. And then on the bench, you've obviously got the usual suspects replaced. Have you got the usual suspects actually? What does the front row replacement look like?
So you've got Moon.
Yeah, so Moon I think gets the call for sure, and Cowan-Dickie.
Moon and Cowan-Dickie. Do you go Cole or do you go Harry Williams? I go Cole.
Yeah, it's difficult. I don't know.
That's either or, but let's say Cole for argument's sake.
I'd almost prefer Harry Williams because I think there's a theme going on with the younger guys, but it's a difficult one. I don't feel like Cole has really shone, but then I don't really know what I'm looking for in my front row, in my slightly more old-fashioned front row forwards, which Cole is.
Yeah, I probably go Cole, but I'm not bothered either way. And then I think I go Hughes and Shields.
Yeah,
as my other 2.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And then obviously you've got you're in the backs. We're saying
Robson,
Noel,
Ford, and Noel.
Robson, and you have to have Ford. Yeah, I think that is the 23. Marcus Smith, to me, has been called up purely to kind of give him the experience of spending a week training with the team. I genuinely don't believe that Eddie is seriously considering utilising him on Saturday.
No, I don't think so.
Cipriani is obviously out of the equation, and I just don't think that's going to change, unfortunately, for him. But as you said, the way England are playing at the moment, I'm less upset about that than perhaps we were a few months ago. And I suspect there is an element of, we talked about it back then, but Cipriani is great at creating magical moments, and there are plenty of fly halves in that playing for other nations who are in the same vein, but perhaps is not quite so good at just being part of a 15-man team trying to deliver a sort of tactical performance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I still think Cipriani's been hard done by, but I'm not willing to question Eddie right now.
Yeah. So the final thing then, Dan, before we leave everyone from this midweek episode, last year, was it last year or 2 years ago? The scuffle in the tunnel, as Ugo called
last
it.
year, yeah.
Last year.
Up in Murrayfield.
There's going to be guys looking at this game, beyond the fact that it's obviously potentially going to be a vital one for England. And based on what we're predicting, we think it will be. Is there a danger that England go into the game almost more intent on payback rather than just going and, a bit like they did with Italy, just putting in a perfect performance? And does that potentially open them up to problems? Is the hype going to get to them?
I hope not. The hype won't get to them. But I think there's definitely there's just an added little bite to this one.
I mean, are there any Scottish players left who were involved in it? Because, of course, they're all injured.
Yeah, there'll be a few. For example, Finn Russell, who threw that ridiculous pass. But I think England will, exactly, that's the thing. It won't be exactly the same teams. I think England will want to really hurt them on the scoreboard more than just try and get one over.
Yeah. Well, that's what we hope. And I agree with you. I think that's probably. I feel like this team has grown so much as a group, as a unit. I think they'll go into the game with exactly that mindset. And yeah, I'm projecting a strong performance and a large scoreline, and I think it'll be another bonus point.
I think so, but then we'll do predictions on the day.
We will, yeah, actual scores and what have you. In fact, we'll do them before and after the Wales Ireland game.
Yeah, for sure.
That could be a factor. Because Scotland also, let's not forget, if Ireland manage to win, Scotland will be looking at the England game as an opportunity to spoil England's party. So that's an added incentive for them. And
this is massive for Scotland as well, because if Scotland get a great result against England, it changes dynamics. They've had a poor Six Nations for their liking, and they genuinely need to have a result to give them the momentum they need. So
lots to look forward to. It's going to be a massive, massive weekend. I hope all of you have booked the time off doing a couple of things. If your wives aren't and girlfriends aren't into the rugby, or boyfriends and husbands, then you need to make sure that they either are or they leave for the day, because there's a lot going on and you're going to need to be watching intently. Thanks, guys, again for joining us for our midweek. Obviously, don't miss out on what we have to say post Saturday's big game. Continue to join us and listen to what we have to say and get in touch. Lots of you have been doing so, and it's great when you do. It gives us stuff to talk about on the episodes, and it's just great to hear from you guys, that you enjoy listening and what you like about it. So yeah, get in touch. You can email us, englandrugbypod@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on social media at englandrugbypod on both Twitter and Facebook. And if you get the opportunity, as I always say, really appreciate it if you could head over to iTunes, take 5 minutes, rate us, review us, let us know what you think, because that's how it's how we know how we're doing, and it's how we're able to get more and more of you listening, which is obviously the goal ahead of the World Cup in not long now. So join us again on Saturday and enjoy the weekend. We'll speak to you then.
See you soon, guys.